So the focus on the Amazon killer, the two-click killer, Axel Rudakubana, has now moved on to just how easy it was for him and, of course, for people like him to get these deadly weapons online, these knives. It seems it just took him a few seconds to sidestep the so-called security that Amazon had in place, and he got a huge blade. Prime Minister's seeking to make this a watershed moment. Do you think it is?
Look, we've heard this all before, I'm sorry. Just when this government got in, one of the first things they did, they brought in an emergency law which could have been coming under the last government, to get the, what were they called, those knives, those great big blades?
Zombie
knives.
Yeah.
And that you can still get them if you look hard enough. Why didn't they tackle... why didn't they add on? There'd have been all-party support for this, the ease with which you can buy knives.
You don't think that the things have changed? You don't think that, the statement that the Prime Minister made at 8:30 yesterday, big pieces written in the Sun today, you don't think that this is...
No, because I think these online giants just behave like they're masters of the universe and they don't seem to care, whether it's the filth that is pumped out online, which people like this monster in Southport could access, or the ease with which they get the knife. There have been other terrible killings where they've not done anything about it. And how are they going to stop it?
It's incredibly hard, in truth. We're actually getting to the crux of why Elon Musk has gone wild about British politics, because he's got a social media platform where he doesn't want big fines for allowing what we would consider horrific views and videos to be placed on it. I think you're always chasing this because knives are everywhere. All of us can go home,
they're in your mum's
kitchen
drawer.
drawers, and you've got him. But if you make it harder, you're doing something.
Yeah.
And if you take off terrible, violent videos which can dehumanise people, you're doing something. But in the end, you've got to somehow stop, which is incredibly difficult in itself, people becoming misfits, loners, and becoming like him in the first place, where he wants to go and get a weapon, in this case, a knife, and kill people, young
for the
girls.
First time, he'd been carrying knives consistently.
10 or 15 times, and he'd been referred to prevent 3 times. But I think the biggest thing here, how do they stop these impressionable young men in particular accessing this terrible stuff on the dark net?
Well,
how do they stop that?
That's obviously...
That's the key.
But this morning, because of what the Prime Minister has written in The Sun and in branding the killer, the two-click killer, within their sites this morning is changing the rules on accessing blades. So currently, customers ordering knives on Amazon are asked to enter their date of birth, and when it's delivered, proof of age and a signature is required on delivery. And obviously, that was not enough to stop Axel Rudakubana, who was under the legal age, managing to get hold of this knife. So, proposed checks would see buyers asked to submit an identity document, such as a passport, and record a live video to prove their age. I mean, it's worth a try, isn't it? We can't just hold our hands up and go, oh, well, they'll just go to the kitchen drawer. Because it may be that within a family, you know, plenty of families might think their children are at risk of, you know, gang use of knives, thinking that it's fun to take a knife to school, thinking that they have to take a knife to school, for instance. We know, talk to parents who say their children think they should do that to protect themselves, all completely misguided. So they'll restrict knives within the home, but if they can buy it online, then they're going to get access.
I think you're putting hurdles in the way, and you're making it harder and harder. And, of course, you know, they can use AI for videos. We've done it. People have been caught.
Or they can use an older brother or friend.
Yes.
Or your mate down the street.
Teens are experts at getting fake ID to get into pubs and clubs. I'm sure you can do it. But, again, it is better, I think, to put the hurdles there. But it's why are they acting this way in the first place? I think that's what we have to...
What do you think
at the same time, Kevin, we have to look at that at the same time.
Yes.
I don't think we can keep going, well, we need to look at the source of the problem. You need to tackle it on every single level you possibly can.
Susanna, I agree. You've got to do it in lots of different fronts and lots of different ways.
What do you think of this idea?
There are 3 dead children. Grieving families. We must never lose sight. That's why we're attempting to change this, so there aren't more families like that.
What do you think of this idea? This has come from Darren on what used to be Twitter on X, and a lot of people have suggested this in recent days. I think this is a really good idea. He says there's a very easy way to do checks on lives. You get them delivered to a post office, and then the post office can do the age verification check via your ID. It's really easy. We get parcels delivered to the post office there anyway. It just means you'd make knives. It would be mandatory to deliver a knife through the post to the post office, and then you have have to go along with your ID. I think that's a really neat idea.
Or maybe you just ban knife sales online. So if you want,
well, I think Amazon would survive if they had to lose knife sales.
Wouldn't that be the obvious, most logical thing? If a mum or dad need to buy a knife for the kitchen, they go to a store and buy one. Yeah. Why do we need online knife sales? I don't get it.
So Phil on X says Starmer is simply jumping on another bandwagon. So this is an example of people legitimately buying knives online. I bought scalpels to use in craft work via Amazon. They're restricted items, so Phil says, I had to prove my age upon delivery, use my driving licence. And, of course, he said that should be enough. You just simply prove with an official document your age on delivery. There's no other checks needed. If those were enforced, this wouldn't be a problem.
It would. If you've got scalpels in a house, yes, you can still go and get them, can't you? I mean, you can get your parents.
Yeah.
So there is. I appreciate where he's coming from there, because he's saying, "Look, I'm law-abiding."
The Prime Minister is suggesting there's something we can do. Just do what's already there. Enforce age verification on the doorstep.
Yeah, but not everybody is going to be enforcing it. Now, I'm not criticising delivery people, but they tend to be around the minimum wage, rushed off their feet. Yeah. Somebody's parked on a busy road on a double yellow line.
They may not want a confrontation
and they just leave them on the doorstep.
Of course.
And you turn up with
you on the doorstep.
Well, you turn up with a parcel. I can't find my age verification. What are you going to do? Take the parcel away?
If they want,
you don't really know what's in it anyway.
Drastic measure. If what has happened is so awful. Don't we really need something really drastic which will work? Ban them.
Well,
you mean ban the sale online?
I would.
But somebody...
And then let Amazon sue.
Somebody motivated like him, from what we now know, you couldn't, before the trial, to avoid prejudicing it, you had to ensure a conviction if he hadn't pleaded guilty. You can't... somebody like that is going to get a knife, he's going to get a weapon somewhere. I mean, that's it. Like, he was hell-bent on, for whatever reason, on going out and inflicting violence on people.
All right, let's change the subject. Government after government struggles with benefit cheats. How to stop benefit cheats? The problem gets bigger and bigger. This government is going to propose today that one way of doing it, to take a repeat offender, you get one strike, 2 strikes and you're out. You lose your driving licence. If you cheat your benefit, this has been reported in this morning's newspaper. If you're caught more than once cheating on benefits, that's it. You can't drive for a couple of years. What do you think?
Well, I hope they do it for PPE people as well, who ripped off taxpayers. Maybe everybody who rips us off rather than just benefit cheats.
Oh, well, that's interesting you say that, because there is going to be an extension of the time limit for civil claims against COVID fraud. Yeah. So there's going to be 12 years rather than 6 years to investigate.
Yeah. But to a degree, I agree with it. But what happens if somebody has been a cheat, they've pleaded guilty to it, they've turned a corner, they get a job, and you take away their car and they can't go and work?
But if it's the second time, then the first time, did they?
Yeah, but, well, people don't always, do they?
Well, they should.
I mean, but people can change later on. I've heard these kind of schemes floated many, many times. That's why I've got grey hair. Well, I think I had black hair the first time these schemes were floated. I just wonder whether there's any serious...
Benefit fraud is costing around £7 billion
That's right.
a year.
That's the
that
figure,
is a lot of money.
Well, that's almost as much as PPE.
That's a lot of new hospitals. That's a lot of nurses and doctors' pay. I think they've got to do something. And to lose your licence would be...
Yeah, but what if you don't drive anyway? What if you don't have a licence?
Well, there is that.
Yeah, you have to pass your test and get one so they can take it away. You make it compulsory so you can be...
Kevin mocks it. It's a serious issue. It's a serious issue.
It is a serious issue. It's just how you tackle it and whether this is just a bit of a PR move to make it look like
you're not doing gimmicks.
To make it... Well, your lot were very professional at it for 14 years until people saw through.
If you are a repeated benefit fraud, you don't particularly care about what the government's going to do. Aren't you just going to carry on driving without your licence?
Well, and how many people do that and never get caught? Because there aren't the police officers to enforce it. No, there's a number of people driving without insurance.
It does feel a bit like an idea scribbled on the back of a fag packet, but I still think benefit fraud is a big problem we've got to tackle.
Well, it is a big problem, but it's how you tackle it.
When is our new Chancellor going to get some good news? The figures released yesterday show that joblessness last month went up by 47,000.
They also showed wages had increased in real terms, the highest amount in 20 years, actually. No, the rise in unemployment is worrying, and it was predicted at the time of the budget. The budget will
blame the budget?
Have some. No, I think it's before that. Before it comes into effect, it comes into effect in April.
Do you blame the budget?
I do, because I think it's affecting employers' sentiment. They're worried about the rise in national insurance. They're thinking, I can't hire new people that I might have had.
So they're laying people off, or
and
they're
not
laying
hiring people off. Yeah, and when people leave, they're not replacing them.
Natural wastage.
Absolutely, I think that's the problem, and I think there's a real issue of confidence, and I think also the way this Chancellor and Prime Minister talked everything down when they got in.
That's your job.
You
do it every day. You do it every day.
Bang on and on and on about the poisonous legacy.
It's going to be very painful and painful.
Pain. No optimism.
Your breath of fresh air.
But Rachel Reeves, she was in China a few days ago. Now she's jetting off to Davos, to the World Economic Forum. The Prime Minister and the Chancellor like to travel around the world, don't they?
They do.
Do you think they should be doing a little bit more to boost confidence back home?
The Prime Minister asked, was he more at ease in Davos or Westminster, and said Davos. And now Davos is filled with all these people like Elon Musk go to Davos. All these billionaires and millionaires and
around, I mean, it's
not your sort, Maguire.
It's certainly not my sort, but I think if you're a Chancellor, you have to go there. I think he was right to go to China. Some of the Prime Minister's trips I have questioned many times in the past, but you have to do some. Look, we're not going to just build a wall and hide. For instance, the Prime Minister should go to Washington when he can to see Trump, if he can take the royal family with him to try and
There's a lot to do here. I mean, he was in Norway and Finland a few weeks ago. What's he doing? Stay here, man.
Well,
Get your job
I think
done.
you find some of them are NATO countries on the front line with Putin.
He's air miles clear.
Yeah. He's never here.
I'm not sure how catchy that is.
No,
but,
never hear Keir is better.
Never hear Keir. There we go.
They feed him his lines now, and I don't even agree with him.
I'll use that one.
Talking about visiting Washington, Elon Musk has caused utter outrage around the world with this gesture that he gave during a speech celebrating the inauguration of the new president.
That one.
He knew exactly what he was doing. He'll pretend it's a Roman salute where the Nazis kind of got it from there. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he left it out of his own edited highlights of his speech. But he plays to the far right. We've seen that in Germany with the Alternative for Deutschland. We've seen it in the UK with his support for jailed Stephen Yaxley-Lennon, a.k.a. Tommy Robinson, the thug and far-right
Well, he says he was talking... He said it was from the heart.
That's rubbish.
That's what he says.
You would have gone like that. You don't go, you see the stiff arm. You know exactly what he was doing. And he's signalling to the worst type that he's with them. That's what he's doing.
So, Elon Musk posted on X, frankly, they need better dirty tricks. The, quotes, everyone is Hitler, unquotes, attack is so tired. The trouble is, it looks like a Nazi salute, and therefore people are going to criticise it as looking like and being a Nazi salute. If he didn't want to be criticised for it, why did he do it?
Look at the way... You're right. Look the way he turns. That's not from the heart. You do it from the heart, you'll do it like that, or you'll do both hands, but you don't go like that.
Well, and also, I can notice in what you're doing, you won't even replicate it.
No.
You're putting your palm out rather than down.
We know...
Because it feels physically like you are... Like you wouldn't touch a hot stove. Nobody in their right mind would do that salute by accident. It feels... totally
He's had
wrong.
support from an unusual quarter, though, the Anti-Defamation League, which is a non-governmental organisation, and it's very against anti-Semitism. It's defended him. In a post on X, the League has said, quote, Musk made an awkward gesture in a moment of enthusiasm, not a Nazi salute. And they've urged both sides to give each other a bit of grace.
Huge criticism from many quarters of the Anti-Defamation League in the US over that, because they don't want to upset Trump and Musk at the start of a presidency. They've been absolutely slated for it, for all of a sudden just trying to look the other way, just, we don't want to have to call this out.
No. So the German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, said Musk has the right to free speech, but, he says, what we do not accept is if this is supporting extreme right positions. Spain's Minister of Labour and Social Economy announced she would quit X after, quote, the entire world witnessed Elon Musk mimicking a Nazi salute. The German health minister said it's a gesture that must worry every Democrat.
And Ruth Ben-Geert, who's a history professor at New York University, so apolitical, has said on X, There's a historian, as a historian of fascism here, I'm telling you this was a Nazi salute and a very belligerent one as well.
Spain had a history of fascism. Franco, 1936-39 Civil War overthrew a democratically elected government. Germany, we well know what happened there, which is why they take a very strong line.
I wonder if he'll do it again.
No, we've heard nothing from any British politician about Musk.
OK, well, we're going to speak to a British politician this morning at 8:30. So we will ask her what she thinks.
Story, I'm sure, I'm betting my bottom dollar you will have a take on this. What is going on with Prince Harry? Harry has been saying for 6 years that he was never going to settle with the Sun or any newspaper which he thought had hacked him. Right. He was going to take them all the way to the cleaners and back again. It didn't matter how much it cost him. And yesterday we saw an adjournment in that particular case against the publishers of the Sun.
Well, it was due to start yesterday.
Pardon?
It was due to start yesterday. The fact he didn't show up was rather telling.
Yeah, and the word is that there's going to be a settlement against all predictions from Harry himself. What have you heard, chaps?
Well, I think it'll be, without knowing, but I think it'll be, you look at the law always goes for mediation, believe it or not. He'll have been offered so much in terms of compensation. If it's over what you would get if there was a hearing and an award by a judge, you are then liable for costs on both sides. Which
if you reject the offer...
You reject the offer...
And it was bigger than the eventual settlement...
Yes.
You are liable for the legal costs.
Both sides, which probably going to run into tens of millions. But I also think the public mood has changed on him. And I think some things would come out that... During the case about his own behaviour and people who were speaking to the Sun.
What, you mean the Sun has possibly threatened him?
No, I just think if you go into the witness box day after day, you can sustain collateral damage because there will be questions put to him about his conduct in the past, some of which is in the public domain, which will be uncomfortable for him.
All right, then, so in that sense, you think the Sun may, or the Sun's lawyers may have said to his lawyers, you want to play hardball? Fine.
Oh, yeah, well, yes.
Without doubt.
Both sides will play very hardball. Yeah. There'll be a lot of mud.
Or we can play nice and give you a huge amount of money.
People often think nobody wins in a libel case. Nobody wins in these court cases because there is so much from both sides, and it will just draw a line under it, and he can then start afresh. And remember, not that he cares what his father thinks. His father would have said to him at the beginning, don't do this.
I wondered if he'd had any conversations with the family. I don't think he has in this case. But it's interesting because he vowed when he began this fight, this was the fight of his life.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, he wasn't going to give up. He wanted accountability. He didn't want a deal. He didn't want money.
No.
He wanted accountability. And it looks like that fight may be over.
Yes.
And
he hasn't achieved what he wanted.
No, he'll take the money and run instead.
Maybe he needs the money.
His lawyer...
Because where's the income coming in for Harry and Meghan now?
Well, the Netflix deal's gone down, hasn't it?
Spotify's gone. I mean, is this boring cookery never going to happen?
Well, no, he's probably past his peak selling.
I think he has.
But his lawyer will have a responsibility to advise him. And if he's being offered an eye-watering amount...
and
then the lawyer would have to say, you may want this crusade... but you could be left with more eye-watering costs.
Well, also, he might not win.
Yeah. No, well, that's it.
He might not win.
We're making a big assumption here.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
he's going to win.
It's a risk. We don't know. We're not seeing evidence. We might never know.
Just looking much further down the corridor of time, what do you think the long-term future holds for Harry and Meghan now? I mean, they've had a very, very hard year. As you say, they've lost a huge amount of public support now. What do you think the future holds for them?
Well, they didn't want to be... they wanted to step out of the public eye, and they've managed it because they're out the public eye. And they are trying to monetise their lifestyle, but I'm not sure how successful that's been.
Well,
there is no prospect of coming back here.
OK, you say they've stepped out of the public eye. It's not entirely true. They did a huge documentary. And then Prince Harry did this huge best-selling book. There were some reports in the papers, I think, over the last couple of days that Prince Harry was taken aback by the reaction to the book. He hadn't expected it to have the kind of hugely devastating impact that it had.
I don't know why I wouldn't have realised that.
No, I know. It was so
rude
critical.
Things about your father and your brother and your sister-in-law and the Queen.
And the number of people you killed in Afghanistan.
Unbelievable.
Her new show, it is on Netflix, so the deal still stands that that she has. and it's a cookery show, but of course it was delayed, wasn't it, because of the wildfires?
Yeah.
And there are criticisms that perhaps it's not in touch with the cost of living crisis at the moment, because it's going to be very sumptuous, very luxurious. So the question is, do people want a little bit of luxurious fancy escapism in the middle of a crisis, or do they want someone who's a bit more down to earth? And to be fair to them, during the wildfires, they did go and do a very meaningful, purposeful, you know, hugging, looking after, supporting emergency workers. So
but I mean,
they're still in the public eye very much. They're still successfully making programmes, it looks like.
Well,
are we just carping from this side
I don't think
of the sea?
I don't think the documentary on polo was particularly chattering, was it, really?
No.
And I think when Netflix did the deal with Harry and Meghan, they probably didn't think it would be about cookery shows. And making pots.
And he's about.
I thought they were probably expecting a bit more bang for their buck.
And he's about to host the Invictus Games for disabled, handicapped service personnel. But I do feel peak Harry and Meghan has gone, and the political climate in the US has changed. It'll be more hostile to them because of Trump in the White House and their run-ins. In fact, Trump has said, I'm going to investigate his visa application and whether he declared he'd taken drugs, which you're asked the question. I just wonder whether now, because they're being taken down a peg or two, I believe. And I don't.
That very critical Vanity Fair.
I just wonder whether there's more likely to be a rapprochement, because you're not strutting around in the same way now. So with your family, particularly your father, maybe his brother's a bit harder from what we hear, but with your father, you would on a human level, you would hope there is a building of.
Jim, just very quickly, we referred quite positively about their public appearances and what they said in LA about the fires last week. But there's a big backlash against them. A lot of people said, "Who do you think you are?" Coming down from Mount Olympus and distributing parcels.
They're damned if they do, and
that's my point.
They don't, honestly.
You always get some people who will always have a go, and then you'll get others who.
That wouldn't have happened 5 years ago.
No.
In the latest scientific investigation that people wonder why it's even using public money to be undertaken. A professor in Sweden says professional footballers are actually super clever. Maybe some of them are not as schooled, but you absolutely cannot dismiss their brains. This is Professor Petrovic of the Karolinska Institute in Sweden, studied 200 professional players in Brazil and Sweden, giving them different cognitive tests. And the co-author of the study was from Oxford University and says football is about problem-solving, and that in some tests they came in the top 1 or 2%.
You've got to think really quickly if you're a professional footballer at the top of your game and looking at angles. We quite like the old meathead idea of a footballer, don't we? Just brains in their boots. But those I've met, a lot of them are really clever and smart. And you look... I'm just going to trigger him here. You look at somebody like Gary Lineker. You can agree or disagree with him, but he's clearly a smart lad.
Lineker's very clever.
Yeah, but it normally triggers it. And you say, why is he paying all that money? What's he doing now?
Oh, that's right. The criticism is that in your view, he's overpaid rather than that he's...
By the taxpayer.
He lives rent-free in your head.
Sorry, can I just give a few counter-arguments to this theory? There are some examples of pro footballers not being all that clever. Jack Grealish struggled to spot England on a map of England. Kai Havertz, Arsenal's German player, he once cut up a freezer pack and he poured the blue jelly into his drink because he didn't have any ice cubes. He thought that was the way to do it.
All right.
I love this one. In a post-match press conference, I'm not even going to name this player. So
go on, please.
All right, he was Mohamed Anas, he's a Ghanaian player. He said, I thanked my wife and girlfriend before correcting himself. He said, and I really do love that.
I'm sure they're all towering geniuses. I've just never heard of any of them.
But I think most of them, when you meet them, are quite clever. You're right, they're not schooled or educated formally because they've been playing football.
Yeah.
But quite a few of them have got degrees and so on, and they study as well as
Nobody would say Wayne Rooney was brain of Britain, but he was a brilliant footballer.
Exactly.
So what's wrong with that?
Absolutely good for you.
What's wrong with you now?
I mean, footballing community.
You've just sounded
one of the few footballers I've heard of.
You've just sounded normal.